Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
It would be my pleasure. No. Jeff, you go first.
I actually just got back from Comic-Con, and that's actually where I met you. That's like the only time I've ever met you was at Comic-Con.
Yeah?
In line at a pizza place. Look at that.
I didn't know you guys fucking met each other ever.
Yeah, I met him. I think it was right after I had started doing Unpopular Opinion, and I was at Comic-Con. I was like, I do a podcast on the website that you currently work for.
That's cool. To me, this is like two characters from different things meeting each other.
Crossover.
Like in a
perfect.
crossover.
Perfect for the podcast.
It's like Jay and Silent Bob being in Scream 3. And you're like,
exactly.
It's fucking weird.
Oh, we're doing it. Hi, everybody. My name is David Bell.
And I'm the internet's Seanbaby from the hit website 1-900hotdog.com.
And I'm the world's Jeff May from all the podcasts that
all the
ones that aren't the ones that we're talking about right now.
That's correct. And we just watched Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
Brought to you by Honda.
In my world, you're well regarded. You were an X-Man. Fuck that, you were the X-Man. The Wolverine. He's a hero in my world.
Yeah, well, he ain't shit in mine.
All right. First of all, yes, thank you guys both for being on here. This is fucking fantastic. You guys are such goddamn comic book nerds. I really need it because Tom's not here. Tom's having a baby with Marina, or they already had the baby.
No, that was a while. That's how long would that labor
Marina's like the
be?
biggest goddamn Deadpool fan. So I was like, I'm gonna need to bring mad comic book energy to this because I don't know shit about comics.
Oh yeah.
I'm familiar.
And thank you guys so much. Do you want at the start of this just plug stuff that you're up to and you're doing and what's going on in your lives? Sure. Just things you want to say to the American people?
Oh, look at that. It's so nice that we're having a volley of going firsts here. So I do a lot of podcasts. I do, of course, on this network, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman with Tom Ryman, soon to be David Bell, for a few weeks until Daddy Tom decides he wants to be a bad father and come back to work. I do You Don't Even Like This Show and a bunch of other things with Adam Todd Brown on the You Don't Even Like Podcasts network. And, of course, I have Jeff Has Cool Friends, which you can get for free everywhere, as well as patreon.com/Jeff May, and that also encompasses the show Nerd with Dre Alvarez. I got a lot of fucking shows. And then I open packs of trading cards on camera on the Jeff Has Cool cards. I opened up some Marvel Series 2 trading cards at Comic-Con while I was there. That was fun.
That does sound fun.
It was.
Sean, what about you? What's your deal? What's your whole
I also
deal?
have a lot of things. I mentioned 1-900hotdog. We also have a podcast for that called The Dog Zone 9000. That's with 2 G's and 2 Z's with the great Robert Brockway and fantastic guests. We also, with Jason Pargin, do a watch-along of Mountain Monsters, which is a show about hillbillies finding Bigfoot in the woods every week and getting their ass kicked by Bigfoot with zero budget. That podcast is called Big Feats. That's all my plugs.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Great stuff all around. Well, thank you guys for being here.
No, Sean, I'm actually, I really love your work, man. The comic strip stuff that you've done throughout your career has been some of my favorite shit. And your Super Friends website just, I think we may have mentioned it on Tom and Jeff Watch Batman when we did Super Friends.
Yeah.
We had to.
It used to be the definitive thing on the internet. I mean, just by default.
Right.
I've been doing internet stuff since the mid-90s. So So yeah, Super Friends. You basically look for Super Friends, and you get my website and nothing else. So.
Like that was the internet.
Yeah, that was I had about 20 to 30% of the internet for at least 5 years.
It's like a very like Tony Montana, like on top of the world.
More like just by volume. I wasn't
First you get
controlling
the
anything.
clicks.
I was just typing faster than everybody else, I think.
So, hey, Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
This is a movie. This is gigantic. I think it's the highest grossing R-rated movie now. It comes right during Comic-Con where there was a bunch of Marvel announcements. It is the official entering of Deadpool into the MCU, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the third Deadpool. What do you guys think of this film?
I am not going to be cynical about it. I really had a good time. And
it was fun.
God.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You had
no,
more thoughts.
you're right. It's like it's clearly it's the correct way to do a cynical cash grab is by being like, hey, we're doing a cynical cash grab. That's pretty funny, right? And like it normally, like I kind of find Deadpool's existence in pop culture a little annoying because it got too it kind of like rolled over itself and it's been stumbling down the hill of meta commentary and chimichangas is a funny word.
Right. It is.
And yet this just really hit all of the really I really enjoyed it. I really like I was Leo pointing at the screen a lot of the times and I'm like I'm such a mark. I was a mark for this movie.
I think it's kind of I don't know how anyone's going to be able to recreate it. It was super fun and it did everything wrong. Like the meta commentary should have been completely obnoxious. All of the little in jokes should have been impenetrable. But you could just tell everyone's having a great time. Everyone loves this thing. It kind of felt like a podcast between people that are maybe too close to be doing a podcast, but somehow it still works. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well enough, but like I saw this with some hardcore comic book nerds and also like some friends that were just like, I haven't seen any of these Marvel movies. Let's check this out. Everyone loved it because they didn't. The timing was so elegant. Like someone would throw a joke out and there's a lot of crap jokes in this movie. There's basically like looking at the camera and like, here's a reference from 11 years ago. Here's some drama you don't understand. Like here's a divorce we're mentioning between two of the actors. And they don't like stay on it. They don't linger on it. They don't like fucking punch it up like a Family Guy bit. It's just like, it's gone. The second it happens, it's gone. You could tell it was done out of love.
It's
It will completely. I think it won't stand the test of time by like. I think it'll be still before decades out because of that reason.
For sure.
I was thinking about. So I've seen this movie twice, and I am going to be cynical. I was thinking about it, and I watched the other Deadpools, and I gotta say, I'm not a huge Deadpool fan. I do think it's always kind of the humor is right about to be stale. You know, where it's like, do you want to build a snowman? It's like, yeah, I saw that on the internet 10 years ago when Frozen came out. Like, I remember that. I still find it charming, don't get me wrong. The first time I watched it, like this movie, I enjoyed it. It's fun to sit there and wait to see what they're going to reference next, right? But then watching it the second time, knowing all that stuff, I realized this movie is way more gibberish than the first two films. It's actually really bad as a film. When you get through it felt more like a Super Bowl ad the second time.
It's a hack. Like they hacked the idea of making a fuck ton of money with member berries and like silly little jokes. And it's funny because if you've ever experienced like a gaggle of Deadpool cosplayers, you will know that it is the worst experience of your life. Deadpool cosplayers might be the worst subset of fans that exist. And like they're just obnoxious and they try to photobomb and you're just like, do you know that suit is not permission?
I'm going to throw this out there. Slave Leia. What if a group of Deadpool cosplayers and a group of Slave Leia cosplayers got together? I think you're hard pressed to hate a group more.
The Hutt Slayer Leia cosplayers are generally like, I work out and that's pretty cool, and I'm gonna show off what I got going on. I do the Deadpool ones. They like interject themselves into your life.
It's a good point.
You know, and you're just like, it's like they're like pests. They're legitimate pests.
They're cosplaying an obnoxious character.
Yeah,
and it's like, yeah, we don't want that though in real life.
And that's flavored the content. And like, by the way, my good friends are like, I'm friends with Jerry Dugan and Scott Koblish, people that Deadpool pays their bills, like people that they work. And still, I'm like, this character annoys me. But for some reason, this is just, it's like he cheat coded his way into making something I would enjoy, even though I'm like walking in being like, there's like rolling my eyes energy to like my expectations. And instead I just found myself kind of like being an absolute tool for it, which was delightful in a way.
It's not a mystery why people enjoyed this film. It's a series of in-jokes and memes. It's just that's kind of all it is. And again, I go back and I was watching the other ones, and the other movies have like plots. They have stakes. Like Deadpool can't die, so they go, okay, let's make the stakes like his girlfriend. Or like in the second one, it's the kid and trying to convince the kid to do the right thing, right? Like it's moral stakes, it's emotional stakes. This one kind of has stakes, but it kind of forgets all that. And it's weird to me that, for example, they spent 2 movies building up a collection of characters, and then they just say, you guys stay home. Yeah, we're gonna do this other movie. Like that's what I mean is like if you're actually a fan of Deadpool 1 and 2, like really a fan, I feel like that stuff would bother you. Where they sort of just threw away Deadpool to do this other thing that's more of just like, we're celebrating this IP from Fox that we are gonna let die, but also maybe not let die. Like that's the other thing where it's like,
I think it's important to note that they knew they had to definitively finish the Fox Marvel experience, right? Like they had to be like, all right, we got to put the nail in this coffin or else people are going to keep asking for things. One of the reasons that I think it's so plot different from the first 2 is because it knows why it exists and what it has to do. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, all right, well, clearly we got to get this into the MCU. This is what we have to do. And they keep addressing it. They're like, Feige said we can't use cocaine. And so they like take that barrier that they've been given and they make jokes all around that. And so it's like, it's funny when you're a movie with a $300 million budget and you're anti-establishment, you know, like.
That's my issue is like, I do like that idea. I like the central. We're going to spoil the shit out of this. People should just watch the movie, obviously.
Yeah. If you haven't watched that movie and you're watching this now,
or you have to not care. Right?
Is there anything to spoil? I mean, it is.
No, not really. It's a series of cameos. That's what's there to spoil.
If you read the 85 Easter eggs you missed in Deadpool, like that's the plot of the movie. There's
right. And that's what I mean, though, where it's like you compare that to the others, because I think people shrug and go like, it's Deadpool, it's meta. And you go back and you're like, the meta stuff was kind of an aside throughout an actual story they were telling. This, it just engulfs the film and takes it over and pushes the story aside. And I would argue, this is so weird to say, there are things in this that don't make sense. And for a Deadpool film, don't make sense. It is kind of, the plot is absolute gibberish, and I want to go through those because there are things where I'm like, that straight up doesn't make sense. The way like in the other Deadpools, the plots at least like follow like basic logic and stuff like that. Shit, I forgot where I'm going with this.
Doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Yeah. I guess I'll just point out, for example, the inciting incident is the TVA saying, so we're taking you, Deadpool, aside. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Sorry. So putting all that aside, because a lot of people aren't going to care that the plot doesn't make sense, right? Like plot holes, who gives a shit? If the central point of this is we're saying goodbye to the Fox Marvel stuff, we all kind of know that that's not true. Like we all kind of know that Hugh Jackman will do another one. You know, like they will put Wesley Snipes' blade in something if the price is right, if the situation, like, I just don't believe that, because they've said it, they've done that so many times. They've said, like, you know, Tony Stark or like this character, they're done, it's over. I just don't believe that. So that's a big part of it.
I think part of that plot, though, the plot is in of itself meta, because remember, it's not the actual TVA, it's a rogue agency of the TVA, right? And so what they're doing is they're saying, we need to put an end to the Fox timeline.
Yes.
We're putting an end to it as fast as we can. He's like, well, don't do that. All my friends are in there. And then we can yada, yada, yada it a bit to where they're like, all right, you fixed your timeline. Everybody can go be happy. Right? Like,
it's really yada, yada. For the record, again, I don't think people care about this, but as a piece of storytelling, I think this movie is terrible. Starting with the fact that they tell him, so Wolverine is the anchor, or the anchor being in your world, which is a completely new idea. They say that there is an anchor being in every universe, and if that anchor being dies, the universe slowly dies, which is a wild idea when, like, people are mortal and people die. So they say that, and then they say it'll take thousands of years, though.
Yeah, so
right
that's
away,
a really weird number to put on something like that.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, I guess it's that is meta in of itself, that they're like, well, no one cares about your friggin' thing anymore because your guy died, and now all your movies are garbage.
And I don't think the David Hasselhoff Punisher universe is going to last for 2,000 years.
Oh, the Nick Fury Hasselhoff?
Oh, right.
With,
he was Nick Fury, not Punisher.
See,
Dolph Lundgren's already falling apart.
We should have gotten the Dolph Lundgren Punisher in there.
Yeah. But right away, they say, and he's like, I'm not dead. I'm not the anchor character, or they say, or being. And they say, no, you're not the anchor being. Logan is. And they show the clip from Logan. The thing is, Logan dies in the future. He hasn't died yet when they take Deadpool and tell him this stuff. So what is at stake? Logan's still alive at that moment in Deadpool's universe. In fact, at the end of this movie, there are two Logans in that universe, because the Logan they're referring to doesn't exist. That's what I'm talking about. It's stuff like that where I'm like, there's basic things that don't make sense in this movie.
Sure. The only counter action you'd have to that is that Deadpool is removed from the Deadpool is I guess to give like a very awkward word choice for it, like omniscient about it, like he can see all of the things that have existed through that, like through reality, so he knows that has happened. Maybe it's like a God, what was it?
I don't know why they would even bring him in. Like Paradox, that's the character. Why bring him in and explain your friends are gonna die, you immortal ninja? I mean, it's so weird.
I think he represents Disney execs.
Yes, I know what he represents. Yeah. It's little things like that. Like they start with him in the Avengers in the Sacred Timeline in 2018, interviewing to be an Avenger. How did he get there?
Yep, that was weird.
He does have the watch. He has the watch on, so I don't know if he has Cable's watch on in that scene. So like,
time machine.
It is time.
Yeah. So that, and he says later in this same movie, I destroyed Cable's time machine. He says it to the Paradox. Yeah. He says, oh, is this? So it's stuff like that where it feels like they didn't even care, where I was genuinely confused what was going on in the beginning, because I was like, where is he? Like I couldn't, he gets the TVA thing later. So at first I was like, oh, okay, did he get that and then go back in time and interview with the second time I listened to it, he says, quote, I took a little joy ride through space and time, and that day changed everything. That's all he says. And it's stuff like that where, like, that's what I mean. The movie is fundamentally like, it doesn't care about basic plot logic and character logic.
Which I think by logic, he's created like 15 different timelines. Like every time he does something with the time machine, that's a new timeline, if I'm understanding.
I guess.
Yggdrasil correctly.
But again, he's not back in time. He's in the Sacred Timeline. And then it literally says Earth 316 or whatever. And then when it goes back, it says Earth
10,001.
Yeah, 10,001. I don't know how he got there. They never explain how he got there. And it's a lot, like at the end when they literally say like, whatever you did here, you've healed your universe. And that's it. That's all they say. or like.
So
I sorry, I have a like why are all the Deadpools fighting him at the end? Why are they doing that?
because
What
they're
are they?
a Mad Max gang, and
I
they work
guess.
for her. They work for Cassandra Nova.
But like they're out. They went through the thing. They're out in the world. Like I don't know why they would fight for her.
Because I
point.
mean, it's like they're her lackeys.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of it too, though, because like I hear what you're saying about like the plot stuff, but like the follow up to that is like nobody involved in making this cares, and that's on purpose. And so like I know it's like it's not convenient, pardon the phrase, plot armor to have that be a thing, but at the same time they're just like, you don't need to know this, let us have this story, and like, oh yeah, he found a way to jump over the universes, like he's Deadpool, he does that, let's accept. It's sort of like in Iron Man 2 when Tony talks to Don Cheadle and he just goes, look, I'm here, it's me, get over it, let's move forward. And they're really looking at the screen saying that, they're like, stop fucking overanalyzing this aspect of it and just enjoy the ride.
Right.
For Deadpool,
You're talking about how
I'm okay.
he replaced Terrence Howard.
yes.
Yeah. I think in this case, the other Deadpools, there's obviously meta shit, but this is what I mean by it took it over. Because like I've never seen a movie shrug off so much where they're like, we want to have a scene with him and Happy. That's it. That was the actual answer.
Yeah.
And it's like it doesn't matter that it makes no sense. And I've never seen something be so low stakes.
Yeah.
And I'm comparing this to the other Deadpools, where it's like the other Deadpools had stakes. Like at the end of this, Wolverine at the end, who's the whole movie is like, I'm just here to save my timeline. The TVA goes like, oh, they don't need saving, or that's what
No,
made
you can't do that. Like that's
and then
not
he
how that
just
works,
goes,
yeah.
oh, okay, and that's it. And I was like, really?
Well, maybe that's the acceptance part of grief that he's experiencing. You know, he's already been through the denial, anger, bargaining, all that stuff. So maybe, you know, he was in anger when he got found by Deadpool. So
I think that's what they want us to. It's just he kind of waffles back and forth.
It does seem
I feel
like he
if we're doing a
accepts it.
grief allegory now, it's obvious this film can be anything to anybody. I feel like
Right.
this film is just a big bag of ideas. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a Family
Yeah,
Guy episode.
I feel like we're talking ourselves out of liking
It
it.
is.
I
No, I don't wanna
think
talk
this
you
is what
guys
we're
out
all
of
going to
liking
do
it.
over the course of the next year is be like, God, remember that third Deadpool movie? What a piece of shit. That's what we'll be saying in 5 years.
I don't want to talk you guys out of liking it, and I feel like this is why I feel like I'm glad you guys are here to like. Like I said, the first time I watched it, I did like it. This is why I'm saying where it's like though, like I do feel this is kind of a Star Wars prequel situation a little bit, where over time people are going to look at this and go like, now that the jokes have been told and now the surprises, you realize there's not much there.
No.
For the movie.
This is an episode of Family Guy for people that had a subscription to Wizard Magazine.
Right.
Like
That's
that,
it.
and that's fine. Like that's
Sure.
why I liked it. I actually did like that. I liked there are a lot of meta jokes in there that I was just like, I'm so happy I mean, we were allowed to spoil, right? Right. That's
We're
the
going to
thing.
spoil the fuck out of this.
Oh,
yeah.
Channing Tatum's Gambit showing up.
Great idea.
To know that he's been working his ass off he had been working at it forever to try to make that movie, and it never happened. And like, we all realized it was too late to have him show up, and he's like, that's what I do and all that. And he's like, yeah, or maybe you just try to do that all the time and it never works out. Maybe that's just a thing you really wish you had done. Like that's incredibly great. Like that was so fun.
I think that's a great idea. I still think there was so many meta things. Like, for example, he kept saying, I don't think I ever had a story or I ever existed. That's the sort of stuff where it's like, I sort of get it. And then if people watch this, like, 20 years from now, they're going to be like, why does he keep saying that?
Or
like,
if
it's
people
so
weren't
weird.
following the story. That's the other part too, is like, I don't necessarily think casuals were very familiar with the idea that Channing Tatum had been spending a decade trying to get Deadpool. You have to be like on the Comic Book Resources Facebook page or some shit to really follow that.
Yeah, I think
This
just
is a
have
real
it
bad
happen.
movie for disinterested girlfriends. with like nerd boyfriends who want to explain everything. Like you're there all day. Pause. See, the thing about Channing Tatum is he was trying to get Gambit made.
Yeah. I mean, you're not wrong. Like that really is. See, the Wesley Snipes thing where he talks about how he doesn't like Ryan Reynolds is actually back because Blade 3 and
Blade Trinity. He was trying to get him to break character. Yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Sean, too, because I remember when the first one came out, it was basically on Valentine's Day. And I think he even addresses about how, like, all the girlfriends that were tricked into coming to this movie on Valentine's Day. Like they've always been very aware of that aspect of it, which I thought was really funny.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite Marvel moments was I was sitting behind a couple and it was a Stan Lee cameo. And the girlfriend turned to the boyfriend and said, "That was Stan Lee." And he was so pissed off, like loud enough the whole theater could hear him. He goes, "I know." He was, that's my job.
How'd it feel, sir?
Yeah. How does that feel, buddy?
That's
so her
good.
every day. That's
what
her.
a good idea.
Just pre-mansplaining to your boyfriend. Like that's that's a great move. That's like a spiritual judo move on her part.
Can I bring up, this isn't necessarily a problem, but this clicked in my brain watching this movie, and then some Marvel news came out, and I want to discuss this because I don't know if this is good or bad. I just find it very weird. Was anybody bothered, or did it ping anybody, like did you even acknowledge it, that we don't know this Wolverine? We don't know him.
I mean,
did they even explain his darkness? Like he seemed really upset about his world, but he wasn't like Old Man Logan.
Yes.
He killed all the younglings, right?
So no,
the X-Men all got killed by humans, which boy, they really fucked that up. And then he killed all the humans, or a bunch of them, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He killed everybody, and not just the men,
but
the women and the children
and the younglings.
Yeah, but I guess, and that, so there are vague, that there's kind of a story like that. The Old Man Logan comic book.
Right.
The reason that he is sort of like on his own was actually because all the villains banded out, and Mysterio tricked Wolverine into thinking that the X-Men were actually X-Men villains, and he killed them all.
Right.
And then they remove it, and he realized he like killed all of the X-Men.
But
it's pretty
you know what I mean with, like, technically speaking, we don't know this guy. Mm-hmm. He is in a completely different universe. He had a different life.
Sure. And
then he's just very drunk and angry. And like when he has the girl, what's her name? X20 something?
X23, yeah.
Yeah, like they have a conversation where it's like they don't know each other. He doesn't know the multiverse. He doesn't know anything that's going on. He's just sort of kind of a drunk. Like his arc is he's, like you said, he's mourning, he's a drunk, he gets sober. And like there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that's interesting because like, so recently some news came out that Dr. Doom is being played by Robert Downey Jr., which I actually think is fine. I part of me is like, I kind of wish they thought about it a little harder because I know why they did it, right? Because they just want to make money again.
Going back to the well.
But the way the internet reacted, some people were like, that's bullshit. Some people were like, no, it's okay, because there was like a comic book where Tony Stark was Dr. Doom. And my thought was like, had anybody forgotten that actors can play multiple roles? Like, why is this?
It's the same universe, though. That's why.
Because
that face
you're thinking
is
of clumps.
And that's, but that
you're thinking of the Clump cinematic universe.
But that's kind of what I mean, right? Is like actors play multiple roles in the same movie sometimes. What's wrong with him just being a different guy? Like, and I was thinking about that in the context of Wolverine, which is like we just see Hugh Jackman and we go, that's Wolverine we love and know. Never mind the fact that the Wolverine we're watching in this movie isn't actually that character.
Yeah, but
he just isn't.
But
we don't care anymore.
There were different Wolverines. Remember, there was like the Wolverine.
Yeah.
Get the band together where there was like the Henry Cavill Wolverine and everything
right.
like that. Like, so I get in that regard there. I think it really is just like when a character, like to sort of not create confusion, because remember the Marvel movies are for kids.
Yes.
And we just also like the things that the kids like.
Right. But I guess I'm just thinking like if they brought Tony Stark back, a multiverse Tony Stark, everybody would go nuts. But it's not the same guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's weird to me that they can just do that, where it's not technically the same Wolverine. And just like people seem to be having trouble with the Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom for the opposite reason, where it's like, but he's Iron Man. And it's like, but he can also be other things.
Yeah.
It's weird to me that what I'm saying is that we've completely interwoven an actor with a character now, which isn't new, like Harrison Ford, Indiana Jones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just weird how, again, this is what I'm saying. Like, it's not new. It's not bad or good. It's just weird to me how our brains do this. And Marvel, I think, has taken advantage of that in this movie more than anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it too is like, it would be very easy to sort of just be like, well, look, like Wolverine generally has the same core. I mean, you could use like the Rick and Morty thing, where it's just like we're all pretty close to the same in the across the infinite universes thing. So like most Wolverines are going to have the same kind of backstory, the same kind of experiences.
Oh, for sure.
Sure.
I don't think it matters ultimately, because I think it's the meta thing again.
Yeah.
It's like, we just want to see Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, and that's
put
it.
on the
He's just like,
fucking
we just
thing.
wanted a Wolverine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I just think it's interesting watching this, and like I had a moment while watching it realizing like, this isn't actually the Wolverine that I cared about.
No. And they do actually impress that upon you. They do. They're like,
Yeah, they do.
Nacho Dad
They
is
absolutely
Wolverine.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was? Did you guys have any big cameo shockers? Anybody you genuinely?
I had nothing spoiled for me. So when Blade showed up, I was like, oh man, that's. I guess I marked out on that. Is how you put that?
I do love Blade. That was when I was Leo pointing, when I was like, he said the thing. He said the skating thing.
I would say that entire collection. I mean, seeing Tyler Maine's Sabretooth show up was a real indication that things were going to go get wild. There was a lot of like random X3 actors, and like the joke with the Juggernaut was like, oh, this year you're this year's Juggernaut. That's interesting. Like, there's very funny. But when you had that core resistance, and of course, Chris Evans.
So Chris Evans and Elektra were the two that I had apparently absorbed from the internet, and not even like from spoilers. Like, I saw people going like, wouldn't it be funny if Chris Evans shows up and then he says flame on? And I'm like, oh, that's absolutely going to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
How could it not?
And
that has to happen.
His death was so funny.
Yeah, that was great. And he's great at it.
When Deadpool just goes, yeah, that guy was killing our budget. Like that.
Yes.
That's like, that was a perfect way to do that entire scene.
I think so. Blade was the one, because Elektra was another one where I think I saw rumors, and Blade was the one that was like a punch. Yeah, it was a punch to the face where I was like, a fucking course. Like, I never would have thought they'd get him to do that, because that was the one where I thought Wesley Snipes genuinely was like, but
Wesley Snipes,
he likes money. He loves money.
He needed the money too. Is it weird? And I know maybe this is just like, is it ageism? I don't know. The white soul patch that he had when he showed up as a vampire, I'm like, they have white hair?
I think it works.
Yeah, no.
Oh, you're right though, where it's like vampires don't age.
I was like, wouldn't you want him to like?
I think you're forgetting he's half human. He's a daywalker.
He is, yeah. He's the daywalker.
Probably the worst version of that is Data in Star Trek, where in the Star Trek Picard, they bring back Brent Spiner, and his head looks visibly bigger because they have to put so much makeup on him. You know, like, as the older he got, the more they had to just try as hard as possible to hide the wrinkles.
He needed that Anthony Daniels shit. Like, you need to have like the exact same kind of body that you had 40 years ago. Or whatever. I think the Channing Tatum gambit was probably the one that made me pop the most. Yeah. Because it was just so aggressively unexpected and also so comic book accurate of a costume.
That's when I knew I vibed with the movie is when they made a reference to the comic book accuracy of Wolverine's costume, because I didn't actually resonate at all with those X-Men movies because they felt really insecure to me. Like as a comic book fan, of course we saw Batman as children and we're like, oh, that's kind of like a real comic book. And then all the Marvel movies felt like they were embarrassed to be comic book movies. And so the X-Men were like dressed like bikers. And I always thought, this sucks, man. Just who are we trying to be cool for? This is a
Grant
nerd
Morrison.
shit.
They were being cool for Grant Morrison.
Yeah, but
They were very grateful that Grant Morrison incorporated leather jackets into the X-Men right around that time, because they were like, thank God that you've given us some sort of validity.
it's true. But I did like how they reference Wolverine actually being in his costume, put on the full mask and everything. I'm like, this is it.
Right.
Like, don't hide from it.
They did comics accurate Wolverine, where he was
They
like a
did.
short guy. The patch, the crucifixion cover of X-Men by
That-
Mark Silvestri, they had that on there.
That made me laugh only because... So, for me, by the way, I'm not a big comic book fan, so there was jokes in this that made me laugh. Most of them were in context. When he just goes, oh, are you okay, to him? That was very funny to me. That's a great line.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was really, really well done. Like, I also... weirdly, a bit that made me pop super hard that wasn't even like a reference of any kind is when Deadpool gets his suit up scene and they keep adding ass slapping
Just keep
to
grabbing
it.
his dick.
But they did. It's very Batman Forever, where they see
Yes.
like the turning and all that stuff in Batman and Rob. Very Schumacher way to do it, but they keep cutting it in with like Loki slapping the ass. Not Loki in the TVA, sorry, easily confusable. But like when they just keep adding the little like slap to the ass, grab of the dick, and cup of the nuts kind of a thing. I just thought
That was the punchline where
Yeah.
he comes out and he's like, I think your costume guy... What does he say? Like, is a molester?
yeah.
That one got me. I really liked this. I don't know why, but I liked the Mitch. Are you improving right now? To the guy like saying a joke. That I liked. I really liked. I don't have much vaginal sex while just staring right at a child's face.
Very good.
I like the jokes. I wish there were less of them. And what I mean is that like this sort of me had the it felt like there was an executive just being like, you have to have a joke every minute, to the point that they have an old boy battle scene that was really cool. I mean, obviously it's very CGI, but it's the same old boy hallway oneer idea. And they cut away from the oneer so that lady can tell a joke. And I was like, why did you do that? Just let the scene exist.
Which
The old boy, when
Was
he
that
fights, they fight all the... So in Old Boy, there's
in
a
the
scene where he
Deadpool? No,
fights
I know
a
the
bunch
one
of-
where he's
okay.
going through the hallway. Yeah.
Yeah, it's them fighting all the Deadpools.
Oh, the Deadpool one. Okay.
Yeah. And it's very clear, like, it felt like there was even like some choreography that felt like a direct reference to Old Boy, but like it was really cool. And I was like having the most fun in that moment. And then they cut away to that lady looking out the window, and she says like, damn, I wish I was deaf too. And I was like, you can just not have a joke there. Just let the shot go. Let the scene happen. Like, again, like there was some really funny jokes, but it had that vibe of like they had a quota
I thought it
of
was
jokes.
very funny that Blake Lively
Yeah,
played
she's the voice.
Lady Deadpool while still never showing her face.
That was great. And I guess his kid was
Baby.
the kid Deadpool.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the fact that there's a Wrexham Deadpool, I thought was very, very cute.
Which one is that?
So there was the one with like what looked like a Welsh flag on his chest. So
Right.
I don't know if you're aware that Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney from
Oh,
Always Sunny bought
right.
a soccer team, and now they have Welcome to Wrexham, and they've really brought this team back from like this kind of not great position to being like super world famous. And so because he's the owner of the team, he's making that movie, and they just put the Wrexham flag on one of the Deadpools. And I
That's
thought that
great.
was very clever.
I mean, yeah, because why not?
It kind of annoys me because I know how funny Ryan Reynolds is,
Yeah.
and that annoys me.
Wait,
You
what?
shouldn't be able to be that handsome and funny. That's
That
is what it's
handsome
yeah.
and ripped and that funny and like that like unbelievably hilarious. And like so clever and stuff. Like, and I know he has other writers and stuff, but I know he's that funny. And you're just sitting there and you're watching it and you're like, man, this guy's really fucking good. I can't stand it.
Does he have a writing credit for this? Because I heard
Yes.
there was a writer's strike issue. Okay, that makes... Because, like, I heard he couldn't improvise on set because it was the writer's strike at the time or something like that. Like, they wrote it and then the strike was happening, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, you couldn't... Like, I don't know exactly what happened.
He wrote on, I think, all three. Because
makes
also,
sense.
another writer
There was like
on
six
that
writers for
well,
this
Zeb
one.
Wells was one of those. And Zeb, he wrote on the Marvels and stuff like that. But he got his break making fan movies for the Wizard contest. And then he started writing Spider-Man and stuff. And he's quite good.
Okay.
He wrote on She-Hulk as well. So he's like a brilliantly hilarious writer as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's some great jokes in this. It's one big joke bucket, you know? And that's why I wish they, like, maybe let some of the jokes breathe.
She-Hulk
You
did
know.
that.
That's where I disagree. I think why it worked is no joke was allowed to breathe.
They just
I feel like
blast
none of the
jokes.
jokes, like we've mentioned a few strong ones, but there are so many stinkers that like if you were to like hold those up as like, please enjoy this scene's joke, like it'd be a real downer.
You know
I
what
just
I
got
realized?
the vibe that they're like, we don't know which joke would kill, so let's just use them all.
No, but I think we also need to remember how like the Zuckers would make movies, and like Airplane has more jokes than Deadpool does per second, and obviously it is what it is. But like Airplane might have a few stinkers, but it's mostly bangers, and this movie had a lot of really good ones. Some of the Blind Owl ones aren't always good. Like the one where she was like, I wish I was deaf too. Like when you said that, I was like, yeah, that was actually a waste of time.
It really was. For an action scene, that was really cool. I think comparing it to Airplane is a great idea, or to like UHF. This
you
is
just
kind
watched,
of
right?
What?
You like just did an episode,
Which
on
I just
UHF,
watched,
yeah.
or like any like Brain Candy or any like sketch movie, because that actually it makes more sense to think of this as a parody or a sketch movie, because it really is kind of a series of sketches.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's off-putting to me is that the other two Deadpools weren't that. They really weren't.
Yeah.
Not as much as people realize.
Because those were
and this
Fox
movie,
Deadpools.
Yeah.
This is
and
a Disney
that's the
Deadpool.
thing. My thoughts is kind of like, oh no, Marvel kind of absorbed and ruined the Deadpools. Like that was kind of my thought, is like they made it because Marvel loves, like, I feel like Marvel's big problem right now, and I'm hoping the new Captain America will make me feel better about this, is that they're scared to be serious again. Everything's a joke. And they're like, because their joke shit works, right?
Well, they also
their
gave
stuff is funny.
One of the biggest, most egregious occurrences of that would be giving Taika too much leash room for Thor 4.
Yes.
Thor 4 to me is the example of like the hopefully not too soon jumping of the shark of that, because like Marvel had put some stuff out there, but I watched the Marvels and the Marvels was great. I don't know why people didn't like it, other than the fact that it had women in it, which I think people do not like.
Here's what I'll say. Seanbaby, did you see the Marvels?
I did. I also
What'd
like
you think?
women. I like women and the Marvels.
Yeah. I like the Marvels. It was a little too, like, I was burnt out. My weirdest note about the Marvels is that it felt claustrophobic as a movie, because it felt like they never went on location and built sets. But I thought it was
think the
fun.
part that was maybe funny in a meta way for me is when they went to a planet where everybody was like a magical prince and they had to sing, and that felt like a dude sarcastically writing a movie for women, and I thought that was very funny.
I thought that was great. I liked that.
I think that movie fell into the trap, though, like that and the cat scene, right? It felt like they were being like, we have to be Guardians of the Galaxy. We have to have like a song from the 80s play while something wacky happens. And that's what I mean, is I feel like Marvel has gotten to this place where Guardians worked really well, that Thor worked really well, and they were like, okay, make everything this. And so when we get to this movie, like, I know Tom has said this a lot, which is like, it's kind of a shame because it feels like Deadpool is the one place to be this, and it doesn't feel as special because they keep doing it. They're so meta. Like that last Spider-Man was kind of this too. And I'm like, you know, how many. And so like, I think I'd be a little more forgiving when it's like, this is the one where nothing matters and we're a parody. But it's like, it feels like a parody of a parody because they self-parody so much. And I'm hoping this is the version of them going like, okay, everybody get your giggles out for this movie. And then we're going to button it up and we're going to go back. And they do a thing where in this, he says like, the multiverse isn't working. It's not working. They look right at the camera and they say, we know it's not working. It's a failure. I genuinely thought they were going to zip up the multiverse in this movie. Like, I genuinely thought they were going to destroy the multiverse because of that and go, okay, it's gone. We killed it.
They had too much riding on. They have too much invested in the stuff that's coming up. But they're like, I think what's going to happen is they're like, but don't worry. Like, we're going to wrap this shit up.
They better. And I really thought like they have a machine that specifically kills multiverse stuff in this. And I really thought like that was going to be the kind of the cap on this, which is like, we're going to go nuts. Everything's meta. Nothing matters. And then at the very end, because it is like the multiverse is just exploding in this and it's just out of control. And I thought that's an interesting plot line to do if at the end you actually just go, okay, it's done. It's closed. No more. But because they're trying to do this like goodbye to Fox and the multiverse is bad, am I right? But also we're not going to do anything about it. And there's no way we're not going to bring back Wolverine if we can. Like that's the thing. Like, you know, they do that little ending credit like tribute to Fox. Mm-hmm. And it felt like a tribute to Hugh Jackman. But it's like I'm pretty sure they're going to get him again. I'm almost certain he'll be back.
They said it to him in the movie.
Yeah,
like you're doing this shit till you're 90.
Yeah,
yeah. You know, this might be a half-baked thought. So forgive me if it doesn't pan out. But it feels like we get further and further away from the character of these characters with the multiverse shit. Because once the multiverse happens, it obviously removes the stakes from the story, but it also kind of removes the character from the discussion. Like you talk about what universe characters are from more than like what that character's bringing. You know what I mean? Like if you're doing a Batman story and Superman shows up, that changes a lot of stuff. And you talk about like, oh, how's this going to be different with Superman here? Whereas if you're doing a Batman story and Spider-Man shows up, you're like, oh shit, Marvel is here. Not, Spider-Man is here.
I think this is also speaks to Seanbaby, you and I's history and background with comics. Whereas like, at one point in time, you were getting 48 Spider-Man comics a year minimum, right? So like you would get all these, or like, because you had 4 titles, you had, Amazing Spider-Man, Spider-Man Spectacular, and Web of Spider-Man. So you got 4 monthly titles that are being published over 12 months plus annuals plus that. So like a multiverse situation was always like, oh, here's a nice little treat in the middle of this massive marathon of comics that I'm reading. Movies take so freaking long to make and they're so expensive that they're investing so they're investing $300 million in something multiversal instead of, several grand in getting a comic book out that's going to be like, oh yeah, we made the Hulk Maestro. That's fun.
Yeah, sure.
And now it's like, if that character shows up now, it's like, well, this is a big deal because it's the one Hulk movie we're going to get for the next 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think I've seen a lot of people argue like this is just comic book stuff with when people complain. Like I saw a tweet that I don't really fully agree with. That was a shot of like Wolverine's death and Logan and Iron Man's death. And they said like neither of these deaths matter anymore. I would argue, I don't know why Iron Man's death doesn't matter now that he's playing Doctor Doom. That's what I mean, where it's like,
that's a dumb tweet.
It's a different character. Actors can play different characters. It's weird that recasting Robert Downey Jr. would make Iron Man's death not matter. But I kind of get it with Logan. But this movie is, again, I loved the original, the opening concept of him just beating up dudes with Wolverine's bones. That was very funny.
Oh, it was great.
Fantastic.
That's all to say that I've seen people defend stuff like people saying like nothing matters by being like, welcome to comics. And it's like, yeah, but that's not good. Like that's not how movies like work for people. And you could argue like old blockbusters, like when you watched Independence Day, nothing mattered then too. There were no real stakes, right? You knew Bill Pullman probably wasn't gonna die.
But Randy
the same
Quaid
way
died.
You know. What's that?
Randy Quaid died.
Randy Quaid did die. Yes.
I mean, when
there
it
is
comes
still-
down
does
to it, I
still-
mean, there is no God and there's no point to anything. I mean,
Exactly.
we're all going to just die and turn into
But
dust.
you know what I mean? Where there's not much difference between Superman and John McClane in terms of plot armor. Like they'll both be fine, probably.
Yeah.
But that's all to say that like it does feel like with Marvel that is it's short circuiting audiences' brains. I think the average audience. I think the reason why we had such a problem with blockbusters specifically and box office stuff and Marvel sort of flailing is that it sort of everybody just got numb to it, right? Like everybody sort of realized, oh, none of this matters. And it didn't help that the movies were all being these like jokey movies where they don't even take themselves seriously anymore. They all became Deadpool, you know, they all became kind of parodies. Like that last Ant-Man, it was just like, what are we even doing at this point? It's all just kind of noise.
Man, I tried taking my nephew to that movie because I was in town visiting, and like that kid didn't give a goddamn about it, man. I was like, hey, you
why
want to go
would
see
he?
the new Ant-Man movie? We can go like make fun of it or something, right? He's like, why would I want to go see the new Ant-Man movie? And I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go fuck myself.
That's no, my niece and nephew don't give a shit about these movies. And that's the other thing about these movies is like, or that's the thing about making movies that don't end that
like Star
last
Wars.
20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that you realize that you're like, we got to attract young fans. And it's like, young fans weren't alive when the first Iron Man came out. They don't care. They're watching fucking Skibbity Toilet over here. Like, you're
Young
not
fans need
making things for
cartoons.
kids anymore.
Like, young fans need cartoons.
Yeah.
So, like, that's
You
why
need to-
kids love Miles Morales now more than they like Peter Parker.
Yes. You need to start stories. Again, you can't continue the same story for 30 years. You will lose your audience because they'll age out.
This is why Ninja Turtles reboots every like 6 years. They reboot with a new
Exactly.
cartoon because they're like, all right, well, we got those kids hooked. Let's get the next ones. Like that is really, and like, by the way, Marvel used to
It's
have great cartoons that I don't know what they're doing now, but they used to do like Avengers, Earth Mightiest Heroes, and like all these different cartoons that would get kids in so that the parents could share the movies with them.
Yeah. Boy, I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be sitting here going, I miss reboots. But you're right. That is the purpose of them.
Yeah, it's like get them hooked and then start it over again. Like that's like the Ninja Turtles actually have learned to do it perfectly because every time there's a new Ninja Turtles, you can see the tiniest sliver of what came before,
Yeah.
and then it's like doing its own thing. And they actually ended up doing a movie called Turtles Forever. And it was like,
Oh, yeah. It was great.
And it was great. It was like a multiverse movie. And like the 2000s Turtles are meeting the 80s and 90s, the 1988 Turtles. And they're just like, who are you talking? And they'd like,
Yes.
mug to the camera and say something like, who are you talking to? Like, what are you
I
doing?
liked that. I believe Michelangelo of the new one was the only one who liked the other
Yeah.
ones. And it's like, yeah, they're all Michelangelo basically.
And then when they reached the comic world, and they were like, okay, these guys are intense. And the comic guys were just like, we're going to kill that guy. And they're like, wait,
Yeah.
you're going to what?
Yeah, for people who don't know, basically Into the Spider-Verse, or what's the Miles one? Is that Into, the
Spider-Verse,
Spider?
yeah.
Yeah, that was basically done with Ninja Turtles before. I'm not saying they stole it, but it's
No.
because I think you could do that for a lot of things. But it was the same bit basically, which is like, yeah, let's have them react to all these fucked up, weird, different versions of them.
And that works. Like Into the Spider-Verse was such a good movie for kids. Where like,
Yeah.
I gotta be honest, man. Like if you took a 8-year-old to The Winter Soldier, which is an unbelievable movie, they'd probably be like,
I would also argue Into the Spider-Verse is art.
It's
and I'm not saying,
gorgeous, yeah.
yeah, it's sort of making an effort, an artistic effort in a way that I can't think of the last time Marvel has done that visually. Like Marvel has sort of just said, we're giving up on the directing side of this, on the visual side.
Yeah, I think like the best example of Marvel movies that did that were actually pretty close to each other, which was Guardians and Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Guardians of the Galaxy really leaned into the Kirby aesthetic and the Jim Starlin aesthetic of like the cosmic Marvel and the bright colors and everything. And then I'll give Thor Ragnarok that as well. Thor is actually
a lot of
very
Kirby influences.
thing. Yeah, very Kirby.
We were talking shit about Ant-Man, but Ant-Man it's pretty bold with their artistic choices. It looks a lot like a heavy metal comic for a lot of that movie.
Yes. Very
Which one?
much.
Quantumania?
Yeah.
Yes.
My issue with that is, I guess, it was very clear that they were just going to do the space stuff again, where they were like, let's do the quantum world. They were trying to introduce a new world, and they said, like, it all goes back to, let's do Thor and Guardians of the Galaxy. And it all just kind of looked like the same stuff. It wasn't bad looking, you're right.
Yeah.
And
but it was Star Wars prequel in the way where it's just like, this doesn't feel real.
yes.
But, it's fun to look at. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I have famously talked a lot of shit about Zack Snyder as a writer and a director.
yes.
As you
What
should
I
have.
will say, and I will give him his flowers for the fact that he knows what he wants from style, and his style isn't necessarily bad. Like,
Yes.
he makes a beautiful movie. It's just that he makes a very poorly written movie.
There's little things. It's when you talk about, like, you can have, and I have had whole conversations about the Marvel stuff, because I agree that they can find unique beauty in the visual effects and the setting and stuff like that. And I think James Gunn can do no wrong with Marvel. I think they gave him that power. I think they don't give most directors that power. And I think the result is that, for example, like the lighting in most Marvel films it's TV show lighting, and like 90s TV show lighting. It's flat.
Yeah.
It's shit like that where, because they're doing rewrites and reshoots and stuff, they like, there's no style. And that's what I mean is, like, there's no distinct storytelling style the way you see in like a Tarantino film or something like that, where like it's very hard for that to come out in these, and this one as well, and they get people like who are specifically kind of, that's their job now. And like, I think where Marvel does have fun is like in the jokes, the writing, the casting. Like, I think that stuff is very strong, but I think they've now
fun
kind of
stuff.
Yeah, I think
To be 100% honest, like, if you're doing comedy, the best parts is coming up with what's funny.
But then there's people like Edgar Wright, where it's like he can do both, And so, like, I just think Marvel has openly basically announced, like, we don't care about directing. That just doesn't matter to us.
They made a mistake in caring about directing. They gave Taika too long a leash, and they let him go wild, and they're like, maybe you needed a bit more confines to be stuck in.
I think that's writing. I think
Love and Thunder. Well, yeah, but he wrote Love and Thunder.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is, like, I'm talking about the way these movies look and like are shot versus like, I do think they have fun with writing, and you're right. I think with that one they had too much fun.
It's like they don't care about directors. It's like, you're kind of not wrong, and that is done. Like, they went a certain way, and they found guys like the Russos who really fit into that, because the Russos were television directors, so they learned how to fit into stuff because they had to. That was their job.
Such a good job,
and they did an incredible job. Taika was let loose a little bit because of how funny Chris Hemsworth is naturally, and they were like, all right, we'll give it a try. And it was this massive success, and everybody loved it. So they're like, great, you do that. We're getting Sam Raimi for Doctor Strange 2, and he's going to put some weird Sam Raimi shots in there.
I forgot about Sam Raimi. I kind of take it all back because Sam Raimi, that is a Sam Raimi film.
It is.
I rewatched that recently, and I'm like, this is Sam Raimi.
But it's not that good.
No, it's a mess.
And so that's what happens. I hate to say this because I'm much more for artists than I am studios.
I don't think the reason that movie is bad is because of the directing. It's because it's Deadpool shit. It's the multiverse. They cram Professor X in there. This is what I mean is like this is a parody movie. When you look at Deadpool and you go like, this is a broad parody movie, it makes sense. But Doctor Strange isn't a parody movie, right? It's not supposed to be, but it feels like one because it's like a series of sketches where they're like, we're going to stop everything and do like the John Krasinski Professor or
Mr. Fantastic.
Mr. Fantastic, and we're going to do Professor X. That if you watch that movie and watch that scene, you're like, wait, why is this happening? This doesn't drive the story forward in any way. The same way this movie stops and goes, we're just going to spend the whole second act in this world with this new villain who's not the TVA and not the like starting and ending stakes. It's all just a series of sketches.
What my thesis statement is primarily is
right.
When you stick to people within the confines of what they have to do for Marvel, but give them a pretty much blank director's check, that's when things start to fall apart for Marvel. And a good example for that is, who was the director of No Way Home, the Spider-Man multiverse movie?
Oh shit.
Exactly. Like,
yeah, but
that's it. Like, you could figure it out, and they're not. But like, it's sort of like when you with Eternals with Chloe Zhao, right? And they were like,
that's a pattern, but I don't
give
think
her once because there was a period though. Like, these movies are all coming out around the same time, and when the directors are going too much into their own shit, the Marvel movie falls apart.
But I think the reason for that isn't because the directors are the problem. I think that's the pattern.
No, it's the mix that's the problem, is
Yes.
what I'm saying. It's not that the directors are the problem. It's that when they are placed, they're given too much of a leash while also being placed in the confines of what they have to get done with Marvel. They can't be their true selves while they're aping their true selves, or they're doing that. Or it just doesn't fit in what you expect out of Marvel.
I think like Raimi is an exception because I think that movie is very well directed. It's a very
it
Raimi
looks great,
movie.
but it's not a
I think
good
the problem with that movie is they did this. They went Multiverse of Madness, or that was after No Way Home, right?
No, I believe it was before.
Is it?
I think so.
I don't. I just think the larger problem is the multiverse, and like that movie. When you watch that movie for the story, it has some plants and payoffs, like the zombie Doctor Strange. But the middle of that movie is just let's completely deviate because we want to have fun. I think the multiverse distracts Marvel on a producing level where they just like this movie again.
No Way Home was first. It was 2021.
Because I think they go like, this is working. People love it when like we got to get as many characters crammed in here. Let's get Professor X in here. Yeah. You know,
it was John Watts.
I think
was
a
the
lesson
director of No Way Home.
A lesson we could have taken from comics is that generally the best comics are like a 12-issue miniseries by like an inspired artist. Like a Frank Miller will do a Batman run, or Grant Morrison will do an X-Men run, and you're like, this is fantastic. Right. And then someone will do like Civil War, and you're like, okay. So then Mark Millar will write like the main Civil War, and there's like 50 supplemental issues that you kind of have to read. And so if you're in comic books at the time, you're like, this is kind of interesting way to mix up my year. But then afterwards, you're like, well, now there's nothing to show for it. Like, I don't know if I wanted to go back and enjoy Secret Wars, which I enjoyed as a child, or Secret Invasion, which was fantastic when I read it. Yes, and I went back and tried to read the graphic novel. I'm like, oh, this is a mess. I don't remember what I'm supposed to read in between all these.
I got to read the New Avengers number 22 in order to make that work, or, you know.
But they've built this entire cinematic universe around like that clunkiness. And, they have these, the Marvel plan, of course, is 20 years long, and all these things have to fit together. You're like, you're doing a Secret Wars, but smearing it across decades of human history. Like, chill the fuck out. Make one movie at a time.
A good example for that too is like when you look at Iron Man to Endgame, right? Mm-hmm. So what's that? Was that 10 years?
Yeah, it's a very long time.
10 years though, that's perfect if a kid watched Iron Man when they were like 6 or 7.
Sure.
And then they're just at the age where they're like, I'm going to be an adult soon, and the thing that I just consumed is done. Good for me. I can leave and not be done. But instead, it's never stopping.
They made, I think it's, I don't think it's not controversial to say they made an error where after Endgame they should have said, okay, and reset. And I don't even mean reset the universe necessarily, just go new characters, new story, let's go. Where they sort of like bled it over because they didn't time it right. And so it was like, but here's a few more Spider-Men and we're going to like try to like pass the torch in this awkward way. And I think they fumbled the shit out of that. And then
meanwhile,
I think linking Deadpool doesn't care about any of it. I do think linking all these movies together, it tells the viewer they're supposed to care. And I think that's a big problem because then you start the movie, you're not watching a Captain America movie, you're watching part 7 of a Captain America story. And, you know, I've had many, many friends tell me like, I'm not going to watch. I didn't see the last movies. I'm not going to see that, which is whatever.
It's weird. I think you could... all of this to me comes back to Harry Potter for some weird reason, because I think that there was a time where we remembered that if you made 10 sequels to something, that was bad.
Yeah.
That was a bad thing. 10 sequels meant, it was really bad. And then Harry Potter was a series of books that had been pre-written that they said, we're going to do them all. We're going to take our time. We're going to do them in order. We have the full story. You all know it. It's sequential. It's just these 10 movies, and then we're done until we try again with the Fantastic Beasts. But you get it. It's done. And I think people saw that and went like, oh, shit, you can make so many sequels. And it's sort of a yes and no, where it's like what Marvel did is they are like, we're making like Iron Man sequels, Thor sequels, all these sequels, but you have to watch them all for this main... It's like a tree. All these offshoots, but then they started getting tangled with each other, where they're like Captain America: Civil War. That's kind of just an Avengers movie.
It was an Avengers. Yeah, they just had.
And so you start losing your track, where you're like, oh, well, I really just like the Captain Americas. And they're like, that's not possible. You can't just like Thor. You can't. Sorry, you have to watch it all because it's not going to make sense. And I think Guardians of the Galaxy was the closest, which is why I stand by. I think Guardians of the Galaxy might be the 3 films that will last longer than the MCU. Like Star Wars, but even Guardians of the Galaxy, when you get to 3, they go, oh yeah, so something happened with Gamora, and you have to watch all these other movies. Like even that got
James Gunn
tainted.
did it really well, though. He explains it really well. Like he does. They add exposition real. Like James Gunn was the right. But James Gunn is one of those guys that was really good at working within the confines of what Marvel wanted, while still being able to write the movie he wanted. Whereas I'm really mad that Edgar Wright didn't get to do Ant-Man.
But yeah, I don't think again, going back to the director things, why would they want to do these? They're producer movies. And what I mean by that is like if a director comes in and goes like, I have a really great, you were making the money sign.
Yeah, they make a lot of money. They make so much money, Dave.
That's why I think the ones done by very clear and strong directors don't do as well, because the director comes in and they probably go like, so I have this Warner idea and I really want to do this like setup and I really want to shoot here, and they go to them and Marvel goes like, we're still trying to get like Krasinski to play Mr. Fantastic, and so we can't shoot that scene yet. Like Marvel, they're thinking like producers and they don't care about what the director really wants artistically, and I think it short circuits. Like I think Taika, the reason why that Thor was bad is because he just didn't care. Because you can't care. Like you can't at a certain point, if you're making a Marvel film, you have to go like, sure man, we'll do it your way to the producers, because they'll just fire you otherwise.
Yeah. I think too that something that is a missed opportunity was there was no Edgar Wright joke when he the Fortress is Ant-Man.
Right.
And there's no Edgar Wright reference to that whatsoever.
I think that was
and
too nasty.
I'm like, how'd you miss that?
I think they avoided the nastiest jokes. I think it was one of those, right, where all the jokes are fairly polite. Does that make sense?
They call out Hugh Jackman's divorce.
And Ben Affleck's divorce.
And Ben Affleck not being there and Jennifer Garner being like, that's fine, we don't give a shit.
Oh, yeah. I just think that Jennifer Garner could certainly approve that, and, Hugh Jackman was there to approve that. But it is that Jennifer Garner line was great, but that's another case where I'm like, well, Elektra, the character, cares, right? Like that's
not really.
Weird. Yeah, I guess
she might not. It depends on when you get her, but like.
Oh, you're right. She didn't care that much about him in the movie.
But also, like, the Daredevil Elektra relationship is complicated throughout all
That's
forms
what I mean.
of Daredevil and Elektra. So.
Her movie, he's not in her movie, so yeah. I guess she doesn't give a fuck. If you're a fan of the Elektra movie, yeah, you wouldn't. You're like,
if you're a fan of the Elektra movie, I would love to meet you.
Ninjas don't even believe in divorce. I don't know if you know that.
Right.
But.
Yeah. I knew somebody who loved the Green Lantern movie. Like, loved it.
Oh, they didn't reference that? Oh, I know why. Never mind. I know why. I was like, they should have referenced that.
They did in the second Deadpool, right?
The second
Oh,
one,
did they?
Yeah.
Yeah, he shoots him in the head right when he gets the script for Green Lantern.
Mm-hmm.
They already did it. Got it.
And they show that in the movie. They show that
Yeah.
scene where he shoots Ryan Reynolds.
They flashed through it real fast.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yeah, we're not even talking about Deadpool anymore.
No,
So
I realized I tried interjecting Deadpool into that because I was like, oh man, we went fucking wild on the multiverse.
Yeah.
aspect. But that's what this is inspiring though. Like,
Oh
that's,
yeah, I don't think this is not irrelevant.
And I feel like this is kind of the discussion that'll happen around this movie. Like, because the plot is irrelevant, is silly, confusing, stakeless. So you get to the end of the movie and you're talking about references, you're talking about jokes, and I feel like in the first Deadpool, the first two, those were real movies. Like I
Yes.
cared about like the plot of those movies, and I don't know if I could even coherently recollect this one.
No.
Yeah.
All right. I'll rattle off a few. You know, who's the bald lady in this? Professor X's.
Cassandra Nova.
Why does she let them go when they take off the thing? Why
think
is she suddenly sentimental for any of that? She wants to destroy. She's about to destroy the entire universe.
I think he introduces. Yeah, there's a little inconsistency there, but like when Logan's like, you know, I know you're mad, but Charles would have fought for you, and I'm gonna I'm gonna fight for you because of that. Like, I know you don't believe in that. So like the idea that she would have this sort of like change of heart and lets them go, but then shows up to delete that timeline anyway. That's a little bit weird.
And
she doesn't like. It's just.
I feel like that could have been written in. She's touching everyone's brains. She could have touched a part of Deadpool's brain that believed in true love, and I would have bought that. I would have bought that as a viewer.
Yeah. Or she could have gotten the plan to destroy the universe and said like, "Oh, I'll let you go because it doesn't fucking matter that I'm going to trick you." Like if it was a trick or something. That just there's little things when she uses the Time Ripper, they say she's going to destroy the universes starting with this one. Why would she start with the one she's in? Wouldn't she die? Isn't that a weird place to start? You kill all the other things. She's going to destroy the universe, and then she'll be gone.
You know, Loki showed it that it takes a couple minutes for that thing to process.
But like the Time Ripper's in that universe. What if you destroy the Time Ripper? There's a lot of little things like that I'm like.
There's a great moment in a DC animated movie where they're fighting the Earth 2 Justice League. So they're fighting Owlman, and I think it was terrible person James Woods voicing Owlman, and they had a multiverse in that cartoon. Yeah. And Owlman was going to set off a bomb to destroy the entire multiverse, and his logic being it was the only possible thing that could ever matter. It's the only action anyone could take that meant anything was to destroy everything. And I was like, that's actually a really good point.
Very James Woodsian point too.
It is very James Woodsian.
And in that one, they trick.
You mean James Woods from Contact?
They trick the evil Flash to fix the problem, right?
I can't remember everything. I think that's the one thing that really stuck with me, though, was that moment.
Yeah.
And how that just sort of unraveled all multiverses and all comic books. Is that like, when nothing matters, I guess nothing matters.
Yeah, it's very Rick and Morty, not to circle back to it, but Rick and Morty being like a meta teleportation parody.
Because I would argue even the character didn't matter. That was the thing that kind of bummed me out, which is like when nothing else matters, when you have two immortal characters, you have to at least have emotional stakes. And I genuinely don't think they did that.
No,
the ending, I wrote down the ending line, or part of the ending line, and I wanted to point this out. This is Deadpool voiceover. Everyone wants to matter. Turns out you don't need to be Marvel Jesus to do it. You just need to open your eyes and look around, and if you're lucky, you'll find a few friends. Did that come out in the movie? He is Marvel Jesus. He saves he dies to save Marvel, and he doesn't learn that it's his friends. His friends aren't in the movie.
His friends are the entire motivating factor.
They are
of why he's trying to, why he gets Wolverine in the first place for his friends.
But like they don't. It's a bookend where the second act gets lost because what happens is they tell him, okay, we're going to destroy your timeline, right? So the villain is the TVA, right? We are going to prune your timeline. We're going to get rid of it.
Well, the villain is an offshoot of the TVA.
Right. Yes.
It's important to remember that because the TVA does come in and they're like, you're going.
Yeah. The villain's Paradox. It's Succession guy. Succession guy.
So,
but I guess what I'm saying is, so it starts there, and you're like, okay, I know the stakes. It's basically TVA versus Deadpool. Even though, like you said, it's a guy working. Like I assumed it was going to be a situation where the whole TVA is after him because they assume
it's kind of like Midnight
he's
Run.
like a fugitive. They send him to the purgatory, and then it becomes this. They introduce a totally new villain, and we get and so like Deadpool's solution is, okay, I'm going to bring you an anchor, so that's where he gets Wolverine. But I kept thinking, like, why can't you just fight Paradox in the TVA? Like, why does he care about the TVA? Why is he trying to like reason with them and give them an anchor? And then we get completely sidetracked with the sister trying to destroy everything. And then the ending is they just go, yeah, somehow your universe is okay. And he's like, you don't have to be Jesus. It's just friendship. And I'm like, but you didn't actually say.
They placed Wolverine in that timeline.
But he's already in that timeline.
Yes, I know. So this what's funny about this though is like,
but they say when he brings him in, they say you can't just replace the anchor. They say that.
Well,
and then at the end, she literally says, "I don't know how, but what you did here repaired your timeline."
Oh, maybe I missed that.
And it's what I mean is that like you're right that the friends are a motivator, but then he completely forgets about them, and like this bigger stakes happen where it's like the whole universe. So like technically they're a motivator, but they're not in the movie, and so it's just it gets so it escalates and goes so far, and then it's like it turns out friendship in the end matters, and I was like, I didn't get that from the film at all.
The real savior of the universe is the friends we made along the way.
Right.
I think what's funny about this is how this movie is not necessarily designed to, but Dave, you're very analytical about plot, and like that's one of the reasons I love your movie analysis, and you pick things and you pluck things out, and you know you're a great screenwriter and everything like that.
You don't know I'm a great screenwriter. You don't know that.
I know about what the Blacklist says about you. So
I could be terrible, Jeff.
The Blacklist would not highlight your shit, dude. But like the fact that this movie is designed to not care about that is funny to me because I can see it's like really fucking with you.
Yeah.
Because they're like, it doesn't matter. They're like, all this plot stuff that you're upset about, like literally doesn't matter. That's not the point of the movie. And I know that's not enough.
Right.
But it's just very funny to me.
But like, all right, I can sort of accept like, that's why it clicked when you compared it to a parody. Because the characters don't matter in The Naked Gun. The characters don't matter in Airplane. Their arcs are as basic as possible, you know?
Yeah.
And that's why that's like the most sense this makes is like a screwball David Zucker parody where nothing matters. But those parodies, I think, it's just very funny for that to be the highest grossing movie right now. This huge thing where it's like, I feel like this is such a representation of everything I find kind of wrong with the Marvel model, which is that let's make a lot of money in the weekend and then it doesn't matter if people watch the film ever again.
Oh, they're going to see it again though.
Oh, they will. But I guess what I mean, and like who says movies have to be The Godfather, right?
Right. Like
it's just
sometimes
weird
you
to
need a
me.
Deadpool 3.
Yeah, it's just weird to me that their entire model is let's make the most disposable movies that don't matter ultimately, that I think 10 years from now, people still watch this, but no one is going to find this movie. No one's going to, I don't think like, no kid's going to like discover this movie the way you discover like Evil Dead or something. You know what I mean?
No, that's not what this is. This is, we're past that.
Yeah.
Like we're really past that at this point in time. And now it's like you're finding obscure stuff. It's like YouTube.
Right.
Or like shit that ends up on like Tubi. or stuff like that. And like, you know, kids will discover shit like that. Like kids are going to be more apt to discover Big Trouble in Little China than they are to discover a Marvel movie. It's not going to happen. Yeah.
And I just think that's a bad idea ultimately in the long run. Clearly it's working out for them. I don't know. This is a larger conversation. Yeah. But for this movie, what fascinated me was I kept watching and going like, okay, the action doesn't really matter. Because it's shot like very CGI heavy, and like I thought like, oh, at least make it a good martial arts film. It didn't really feel like that. Didn't feel like, okay, it's like, okay, the comedy is good, but it's so topical that it's gonna fade very fast. Okay, the story, the stakes don't matter. What about the characters? Nope, those don't matter either. And so it's like, okay, nothing matters, not a thing.
And if once you learn to let go of that, David. Mm-hmm. You get to really enjoy that movie.
You can enjoy any movie with that attitude.
Yeah.
You know what I do, by the way? I take mushrooms. That's the key. I watch Marvel films on mushrooms. They're fucking great.
That's how I am with the Pirates of the Caribbean movie on edibles.
Yep.
Pirates of the Caribbean is the best film franchise for High Jeff. Sober Jeff hates those movies.
Mm-hmm. But you know what's a good one? Lord of the Rings on cocaine. Terrible experience.
That seems like it would be awful.
Everybody just give it a shot.
Yeah.
The diarrhea is already kicking in by Act 2.
Yeah, Star Wars on heroin.
Oh, that's I could see that working. Yeah.
Skibbity toilet on fentanyl. That's what the kids are doing.
Are you guys excited for Skibbity Toilet?
No. I have no. I have a 7-year-old who is familiar with it, but still don't really know what it is.
What is that?
It's a Half-Life head in a toilet. It kind of runs around, bumps into stuff.
They're making a movie of it.
Kids love it, but it's
Michael Bay is.
As far as I know, nothing more than what I've just described.
I told my niece,
hell yeah,
my niece is 11. My nephew's, I think he's 14, or he'll be 14 this year, but. I told them, I was like, they're making a Skibbity Toilet, and they both went, why?
Yeah.
They're like, why would you do that?
They know it's a dumb idea.
Yeah.
I remember I was hosting a panel for My Hero Academia, and my nephew's like a big anime nerd, and so I was like, hey, guess what your uncle's doing? Like, he's like, yeah, that's fine, I guess if you like mainstream anime. And I was like, okay, fuck you, for one. But then later, they found out that my friend was in this like obscure YouTube animation show. And they're like, wait, you're friends with them? And I was like, what happened?
You care about? Yeah.
Like it really is like kids are finding pocket niches better than we did. We were stuck with like 3 networks.
You want to hear something wild?
Yes.
I don't want to like call them out, but I will have to say one of my nephew's friends was like, oh, I love your podcast. I listened to that. And that doesn't seem like it should be real. That
how
teenager,
old?
Like a 14. Like
that is weird. Yeah.
I'm just like, no, you shouldn't be doing that. That's, I don't know why you even would, but I guess kids are cool still.
There was, somebody brought up Tom and Jeff Watch Batman. They're like
cool
listening
kid.
to it
if you're
with
listening
their
to
kids.
this kid, you're cool.
Yeah. Somebody did bring up listening to Tom and Jeff Watch Batman with their kids, and I was like, hey, thanks. You don't want to do that.
Like, yes, I fucking do.
You don't want to. We talk about some pretty gross stuff sometimes.
Like buttholes.
A lot of buttholes.
Yeah. We're probably done, right? Talking about Deadpool?
Yeah, I liked it. I liked
another hour on buttholes for the kids.
Yeah, we can.
Dead holes. We should do the Holes cinematic universe.
Yeah.
Sigourney Weaver, John Voight. We don't need to give him work.
Nah. He's in Reagan, so he's doing good. He's eating good. He's eating that Reagan money.
He's been eating Reagan money since 1980, pal.
That's fair. Yeah, it was fine. I don't know. I think it'll be the worst of the 3. I think it'll be regarded ultimately as like, when you line them all up, I think it'll be like, it's just like, what the fuck is this?
It's not a movie, it's a moment.
Yeah, I think so.
I have no interest in seeing it again.
I might watch it. I'll watch it again when it comes out on like Disney Plus or whatever. Like, I'll give it a watch.
Yeah.
And see if like anything I missed or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Sure.
Thanks for talking about this with me for almost 90 minutes. Almost the length of like a movie in the 90s.
And at least 20 of that was about Deadpool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, but it does.
What the hell were we going to say about it? You know,
the other thing is like this movie does open up the bigger conversation that we had. Like that's the point of this movie is it's like,
yeah.
It's a meta movie for meta people talking about meta things.
Why would that kid know who Deadpool is in this? Isn't Deadpool like a mass murderer? Oh, I guess he was an X-Men in the second one.
Yeah, and also it's the movie Deadpool. Why are you asking like a logic question?
Yeah. Why would Paradox get him with that baton? Deadpool has like the best reflexes.
It's true.
I think it's because you're not expecting it to have a dissolve concept. Like,
yeah,
he might think it's like a taser.
Yeah, that checks out. No, he thinks they're gonna peg him or whatever. It checks out. That checks out. Airtight. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for being on. Do you wanna where can we find you? Tell those things again at the end of all things here. Jonathan.
I'll be happy to. 1900hotdog.com. We're a wonderful comedy website where we pay writers, all-star cast of comedy writers, just like the golden age of the internet. You can give to us at patreon.com/1900hotdog. We're the best.
Yeah,
you are the best. You are the best. It's a great website.
Jeffrey,
Thanks.
Check it out if you guys want to recreate the magic of, hey, whatever happened to name of website, and then you tell them it's 1900hotdog basically at this point.
Right.
I've told people that a lot. I miss when that website was good. Then go to 1900hotdog and get that website again. Get the magic of what that was. Patreon.com/Jeff May will get you early access to uncensored episodes of bonus content of Jeff Has Cool Friends, but it is also available free along with Nerd with Dre Alvarez. I got lots of podcasts with Adam Todd Brown on the You Don't Even Like Podcast Network. I do, of course, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman with David Bell. And
that's
Tom
me.
Ryman. On this network specifically, patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. And on top of that, Jeff Has Cool Cards is my YouTube page where I open packs of non-sports trading cards and make fun of them and give them away on my Patreon if you sign up for certain tiers.
We're talking Knight Rider. We're talking A-Team.
I've done Alf. I've done A-Team.
Iditarod.
We've done. Adam and I opened a box of Coors trading cards. That was really fun.
What the fuck are those?
Like literally the company Coors.
Yeah.
Like
the beer.
Yeah, the silver bullet, awesome. Baby. Lots of really fun stuff. And then I give them away. So check it out, patreon.com/Jeff May.
Absolutely check that out.
Yeah.
And you already said the Gamefully Unemployed Patreon. So many fucking Patreons. But if you go to gamefullyunemployed.com, you can also check out our t-shirt store. We have some really good stuff by some really good artists on there. Like I know I'm biased, but like I wear them. And like you don't have to be like a fan. Like you don't have to give a shit about us. You know, you can wear like there's like cool Batman stuff and there's like shit like that. So check it out.
Yeah, definitely check that out. I've got my Sheev Palpatine shirt, so
yeah. Check out Star Wars.
Yeah, check out Star Wars.
Yeah, if you can. Give it a see. Give it a look-see. All right.
Hell yeah.
Everybody say goodbye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Star Wars.
Hey, listen, our music is produced by Chris Corlew. You can find him on twitter.com as the Corlew or go to shipwreckedsailor.bandcamp.com. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. For more of his work, go to mvbramley.art. Our episode artwork is by Justin Brown, available on Twitter as Justin T. Brown or at artnessbyjustinbrown.com. And finally, additional artwork is by Starlene Hodge. You can find her work at starlenearts.com or on Twitter as StarleneX. Cool. Goodbye.